Good morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Stefan. How are you?
I'm, I am doing all right. I had to
All
get my
right.
hair and makeup team in gear.
I'm having a low-key Thanksgiving day.
Yeah, it was so low key for me that I'm like, it's just so great to have a morning where I can just hang out,
Yeah.
do
And
nothing.
I,
It's quiet, right?
yeah, it is. It is. Well,
It-
being Thanksgiving Day, I don't know if we want to timestamp these, but here it is. But being Thanksgiving morning, first of all, happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you very
Um,
much.
And thanks for doing this with me on a holiday. I think, I don't know about, sounds like it's a pretty quiet day, but in my household, I have teenage children. So sleeping until noon is, the go-to, the default. And
Well,
yeah.
they deserve it, right? Because they're up and at 'em. Your children are up earlier than most
Oh,
of the American workforce.
yeah. Sophia had a 3:55 a.m. shift at the bakery yesterday. And then Zia, she didn't have school yesterday. So Z's, but her normal bus time is 5:30 a.m. So yeah, they're up pretty early most days. And on the days they can sleep in, I let them because I didn't get that as a child. So I'm all about like enjoy it while you have it because you may not have it forever. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I had a similar experience where at 6 or 7 in the morning on a Saturday, the sheets would be ripped off the bed,
Yep.
and it would
Get
be
out of
like,
bed. You're
"Get
sleeping your
up,
life away.
time to work,
Yeah,
time to get to work."
exactly. I had times where I'd spend the night, a Friday night at a friend's house, or even a Saturday night at a friend's house. So my dad would be there, 6 a.m. Time to go feed the horses. Time to like, yeah, he'd be there to pick me up. It's like, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna knock on their door that early. So you be ready to go. You watch for me. And
Oh
yeah.
my goodness.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
for
so
us, for us it was weeding. We didn't have any horses to feed, but there were
oh man.
plenty of weeds.
Plenty of weeds. We had those too. Weeding, horses. We had 5 acres of land, so there was always something to do. Yeah. Anyway, so like it's funny because some of the things my parents did, like I think have made me almost defiant in some way. Like, you want to sleep in, you sleep in, and I hope that doesn't damage them long term. But it's just like learning how to have autonomy with your schedule and still get stuff done. But man, yeah, for me, I'm always like, sleep in. If you can sleep in, sleep in. And they're young.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, the rules we grew up under were just as arbitrary, right? They had to do with, I mean, they had to do with whatever our parents
Yeah, what
found,
they grew up with and what
whatever
seemed
they
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
whatever they prioritized.
it's
And
true.
again, as we get older, we get more into the habituations, but our kids, they're naturally wired to do what's good for them.
Yeah,
Ultimately, I mean, the younger they are, right?
yeah.
Sleep is its own system, right? It takes, if when you're tired, if you
Yeah.
ignore being tired, you suffer consequences, but our body is usually telling us what's right.
And that's what, like, yeah, I guess I appreciate sort of having autonomy in my own work, right? Like that was something that I always liked, that I've had the gift of having for quite a while, a good portion of my career. I remember I worked for a bank. I was a bank teller in college briefly, and I remember that whole like they have how you dress mandates, mandates on what you're supposed to wear, what's acceptable.
Oh
There
man.
are mandates on what time and if you're late and getting in trouble. And I did that. I did bank tellering for about 3 months and I did it. I did the best I could do. They really liked me. My customers really liked me, would wait in line extra to come to my window. But I hated it. I just didn't enjoy it. So I left and I did park rangering, which also has uniform and time and, but like those experiences, while very good and very shaping, also made me work harder to have more autonomy in that. I want to work somewhere where I can have any hair color I want, where I can dress however I want. So I ended up in tech, right? And tech and creative have more flexibility. They always have, for as long as I've been doing it, 1998, let's go back all the way there. I've always had flexibility. It's my first job in tech. You can wear what you want. Your hair can be any color. And I had black hair for most of my younger days, but yeah, being able to wear what I want, being able to look how I want. And I don't know, I created that because, I gravitated toward that because I felt like that sort of prioritization. Our oven's done. I don't know if you heard that sound, but yeah, that sort
You-
of like individual freedom was important to me. And then over time, the time autonomy came.
Yeah, I don't even know if I ever thought of it so consciously, but it seemed like much of my professional life has been if I can't find something I like, I'd rather do nothing. I'd rather just do what I want to do.
Exactly.
And if I can't find the people that I like working with, I'm just gonna not work with other people, right? I'm just
Yeah,
gonna do
just
I'm
do
just
it
gonna do
myself.
what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna and that's confusing to other people who imagine, who are in more predictable vocational circumstances, let's say.
Yeah, tighter frameworks maybe, but
Tighter,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
rigid
And
framework.
in that way, you and I have had very similar paths. I don't know, I don't know that I can so clearly characterize it, but it's something. I think my motivation was always that I want it to be interesting to me, that I
Yeah,
want to be able to uh, feel like I want to like it. I
yeah,
mean, when you bring it down to just the bottom line, I want to like it. And I didn't think about autonomy. It's just like, I want to like it. But
yeah.
in the end, it gave me it forced autonomy
It
on me,
does.
right? You're forced
Yeah,
to sit. So you end up, or I ended up um, doing a lot of different things from, like you, many different things
yeah,
from doing blue collar labor at the Puyallup Fairgrounds and managing an exploding hot tar roofing truck, to selling electronic devices around the pool in Vegas, to to high-rise window cleaning, to waiting tables, to all the
yeah,
things, and to owning two art galleries 20-30 years apart, actually,
yeah,
right? Trying it again
yeah,
and succeeding to some extent, not really financially, but in creating a community and having it be self-sustaining
yeah.
ultimately.
I love
But
that.
all of those things lead me to what is interesting. What's the next thing that's interesting? And so here we are,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
This what you and I are doing here is the most interesting thing in my life. And I find that it actually, and this is one thing that's happened this week, I find that it changes the nature of my conversations with everyone. When somebody tells me a story about, like, this week, a friend of mine was telling me a story about who he thinks he is and how his life experience is formative. And I go, that's all very interesting. But in some way, all of it is limiting. Your
hmm
story is limiting. And he's like, well, no, but it informs who I am and what I need to, how I can make this decision in my life. And I realized that he was trying to make a really important decision about something he wants to do
yeah.
that will affect other family members.
Okay. Yeah.
And and I could tell that he was very angry with my point of view at some points, right? Like it
Oh,
really pushed a lot of buttons. But I kept going in this, like, your story, our story. The point for me was your story is not who you are.
exactly. And for
You
me, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
well, it's just, but he didn't like, because that started, to him, that started getting into a bunch of spiritual mumbo jumbo.
Sure, sure.
But ultimately, the story is just as I mean, his point was the story is not arbitrary, but the story is arbitrary. It's what we choose, pick and choose
Yeah.
to help us understand or create a reason for why we are in this state.
I think that's exactly it. And I have also done the same really until we started having these conversations. And it comes back to that question, but is it possible that you could just let go of it all? You could just let go of everything and decide from this moment that everything is sort of just open. Everything is open. And the possibility that, I don't know, you can have ideas of what you want, but let go of the outcome, let go of how you're going to get there, and let things just be, just be. And I know that that's a big and hooey kind of concept for a lot of folks, but I love the idea of it because I think it helps me put my focus where it needs to be for me, for where I'm at. And by that I just mean my focus is no longer, well, I experienced this and this is why I'm who I am. Great. I experienced things that gave me a great experience, to this point, a lot of learning, a lot of ups and downs. And yes, in some way, maybe did shape who I am, but does it matter? Does any of it matter? Only if I decide it matters. And to be able to let go of it and say, yeah, maybe this happened. And maybe it was good and maybe it wasn't, but here I am right now. What am I now? What do I want right now? What do I want out of this moment? And how am I going to decide that this moment is going to be and feel and look? And I don't know. I like playing with that idea.
Yes, I think it's an incredible freedom, and again, a luxury for most people who are caught in the framework of, I have to attend to my history and I have to attend to my future plans and I have to be responsible for all the people around me. Right. So there's this sense of responsibility. And
Sure.
then I made the second mistake in this conversation of, like, well, this decision was about something where it's like, well, if I make this decision, I want to be useful. I want to be, and I could tell there was a great deal of passion behind him wanting to make this decision and wanting to do what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I'm being purposely generalized here because I don't
Sure.
want to out this person because he is a dear friend. But I could tell there was a great deal of passion behind what he wanted to do. And then I made the point of saying, well, useful is also arbitrary.
Right.
And he's like, no, it's not.
Useful is useful.
Useful is useful. And I go, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because useful is totally an arbitrary interpretation. When you think you might be being useful, other people or this situation that you're going to put yourself in, you might be a burden to other people. You might be a burden, right? And again, all of this is arbitrary. And you can do this without regard for what's useful or not useful. And useful might be a totally arrogant point of view. It might be just your point of view, and useful can
Exactly.
be arrogant. And that stirred up some anger. And it's like, I resent that you're using the word arrogant. Those are really
Sure.
strong words. But it is when we think we know how to help someone else or another
Right.
situation, and we impose our idea of what the path out of a situation or what might be useful or helpful to someone else, when really the purest sense of being useful is taking care of ourselves and attending to who we are. And who we are is not our history, and who we are is not what we think is useful in the world. Those are just stories that live on either side of us. There's story that live, those are stories that live on either side of the moment, right?
Right.
They're from the past, or they're in the future, but they're not who we are, right? Who we are is so much more vast, so much more all knowing, interesting, ineffable,
Capable. Yeah, yeah.
capable, ineffable. And so we had this discussion, and there wasn't, it was very respectful and clear and fun, really.
Sure, sure.
And because we trust each other, right, as people, and in the end, I just looked at him. I go, because I know that he really wants to do this,
Yeah,
but he's concerned about what will happen to other people, how they will be affected by this,
interesting.
which
Yeah.
is which is kind. It's a kind, but also he is, he will be damp. He will have to damp down this deep, very personal, very creative desire, um, right? Because I could feel it,
Yeah.
and my whole thing is like, that's all I need to know. Like, I don't need to know anything else about your history, about who you're concerned about. I know this is important to you, and good luck finding the most creative way to make to affirm this
Yeah.
decision. Good luck finding the most clever and creative way to to announce this decision, or to make this decision in and amongst the people and the environment that you're concerned about, right? It's
Yeah.
like, I'm worried about this person and how they're going to deal with me making this decision, and my but I'm also, he's trying to weigh his history, like, when I made this decision in the past, it was incredible, right? Like,
Yeah.
like, it was one of the most alive periods in my life. And I'm like, and so he's bringing that feeling forward, right? And he's also trying to sell himself, well, this is who I am.
Right. Oh, I've been in that spot before too. Oh, I find
but
myself in that position a lot,
and
actually.
I'm like saying, well, you don't need a reason, right? I
Yeah,
don't know if I conveyed that well enough, but ultimately, you don't need a reason to, unless you think you need to justify it to other people. And then in the end, you're never going to be able to fully justify it to someone who disagrees with you.
sure. And
There's no,
hopefully you don't need to, but yeah, like to feel like
yeah.
you have to is a whole different
But as someone
compartment.
who loves this friend of mine, and I know that if he makes this decision and undertakes this, let's say, an adventure that he has put in front of him, it will be amazing for him. I
Yeah,
can feel it, right? Like,
yeah,
because the energy that he has behind it, the
yeah,
anticipation, the joy that, also that he was able to bring forward from his past. But I know there are people around him who are telling him this is a stupid idea.
It's funny because even with like, I feel like I relate to that in some ways, even with this role that I took on recently, right? Took me a little toiling to go like, is this really what I want? I feel like I did all these things and put all these things out into the universe, and then bam, exactly what I asked for materialized. And then like I second guessed myself too. Is this really what I wanted? And like, and as I go every, week after week, I sort of check in. Is this still still what I thought it would be? Am I gaining from it what I hope to? Am I putting into it what I hope to? And so far, still good, but it's a funny mental negotiation that happens when you make a decision that is very different from maybe what you are doing normally, if that makes sense. It's a little scary, but also like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've had to justify it to others in some way, or just not talk about it, and then reminding myself that it doesn't matter. It like doesn't matter. Like I'm the only one that it really kind of matters to, and how I shape it. I don't know. Boy, I could really go into a rabbit hole here, but I feel like this work here that you and I are doing has helped me navigate this adventure in a very different way than I might have a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And I have such an appreciation for that, because I think I'm navigating this in a much more open way and an undefined way, but in a way that reminds me I make the decisions here. Like I don't have to wait to be told or pointed or redirected or whatever. Like I design this experience. So remember not to let go of that. I don't know. It's actively participate in designing where I want it to be and what I want it to do, yet be open to learn. Oh, I feel like this is such a jumble. Being open to learn and being open to what might happen at the same time as being mindful enough to say, I want to shape this way. Like, you know, there's this whole openness around me and how this could go, but I want to nudge it in this direction. So I'm actively making decisions and taking actions that kind of nudge it in the direction I want it to go, rather than waiting for somebody else to kind of harness me into a position. If I left undefined, it would most certainly go into a different direction than what I want.
Yeah, and that is a great mental discipline, right? And the more present and still you can be, the more you have access to all of these things that are coming in right now.
Yeah.
Instead of being reactive to them, you can just look at them, right? And
yeah.
say, do I like that? Do I like this?
Yes.
Is
That's a
this
much more
interesting?
clear way, articulation. Thank you. Yes, that's a much clearer articulation of exactly how it feels. Yes, it's kind of like you are able to kind of look at everything and selectively accept or don't accept.
Yeah. I found it funny when you said, or I just don't tell people,
Yeah,
right?
just don't bring it up. I
That's
just
like,
do.
yes, yeah. So what are you up to, right? And I tell
Keeping
people,
busy.
and they're like- and I tell this one same friend, you know, people are they worry for me, right?
Yeah.
Like
Why is that?
project their worry on me,
Yeah.
and like I wish you would, right? I wish you would, or I wish this would happen. And the subtext is I'm worried about you, which is an arrogant point of view.
Yeah, like you
I
don't
didn't
need to
say that.
extend worry.
I
Yeah,
don't
like
say that out loud, but even in the most fundamental sense, if I think my life is going okay, whether that's naive or not,
yeah,
somebody from the outside who knows very little about my life,
yeah,
they love me,
sure.
right? I acknowledge they love me, and they would do, if I needed help, that they would be right there for
Yeah,
me. But they say things that are obviously arrogant,
yeah,
like ultimately, like I know better, and you should, or fill in the blank, anything.
Yeah.
You should,
You
or
should do
they
this. You should
should,
do that.
this relationship, you should, or they should. And it's very arrogant. And we've talked about in the past when I was younger and I was long-haired hippie window cleaner guy, and my daughter was maybe, 9 or 10 years old. I had
Lots of you should.
younger friends of mine giving me parenting advice who didn't even have children.
Yeah. And you're like, I'm
Give,
just gonna,
giving
what's funny with the parenting thing, for me, a lot of it is like, I don't have parents to help me out, right? Or didn't, when my kids were younger, I really didn't have anyone. I don't have a big friend circle. I don't have parents to help me out. My parents passed away a long time ago now. And, it's like, and even my dad, when he was, he was alive until Z was probably 2 or 3. I think he passed away when she was 3, and Soph would have been about 6 or 7. And even then, though, my dad wasn't somebody who I really wanted his parenting advice. So, but for me, so a lot of
yeah,
it, like as far as parenting goes, a lot of it is like, I just figure this out as I go because that's what I have to do.
yeah,
That's my reality. And it's funny. I feel like that is also how I've navigated my financial self, right? And my financial independence is like, because I never had a safety net, or at least I believed in my own mind that I never had a safety net. I have to do this myself because nobody's going to be there to catch me if I fall. My parents have passed on. My dad, even when he was
yeah.
alive, was like, you don't get anything. I work for this, you work for yours, And in a lot
So
of ways,
our
I
stories
appreciate
are
that.
so similar.
The stories that we can let go of now, right? Like in a lot of ways, I feel like the story that I had and that I clung to actually motivated me in a certain way, right? But now
Mhm.
I've reached this point where I'm like, I have the freedom to think about it and let go of it. And I am grateful for that. I wonder what things might be like if I had let go of my story earlier, but I don't know. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter, but it's like, I'm curious.
Well, because now you have support around you. You have
Yes, I have a
people in
lot
your
of
life.
support now. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. And, and I say I didn't have anyone, but my sister and I got to give my sister a lot of credit. She was going through her own stuff, and being in tech, for me, I always had the luxury of a pretty decent salary, no matter, all throughout the ranks and doing freelance. But my sister struggled a lot more. She chose to be a mother first. And I think that was a beautiful choice for her. And then tried to re-enter the workforce, which was much more challenging for her. Ended up in retail, which she loved for a long time until she didn't love it anymore. And then she decided to do something different. And, I feel like we have such similar, we grew up in the same household. We grew up with similar, our stories about same instances are very different. How we digested those stories are very different. If you hear her tell us a story about something I remember, our stories are day and night different at times. It's like, oh yes, I remember that too, but wow, my perception of it is so different. The filter or the lens through which we had that experience, we're different, Anyway, I do have a support system in my sister, especially emotionally, and especially she and I have just gotten closer and closer, even though our physical distance varies from, she's in New Mexico right now. I have to give her a shout out for always having been there in some way, like we've
Mhm.
always tried to be there for each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, support systems have gotten better, and understanding that like support system doesn't necessarily mean like safety net, but just emotionally somebody who encourages you and rallies you and believes in you means more to me than I ever realized. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. That I think this is one of the most important things that I have found is that there have been a few people in my life who approach me without any arrogance, like not imagining they know anything about what I need to do,
Yeah.
that they accept me exactly as I am, right?
Which is
They
amazing.
root for me. They root for me and enjoy me as exactly who I am in any given moment, and believe. And there are a few people like that. And then there are other people who I really enjoy, who are wonderful people, but I can feel either they worry about me because maybe they're projecting worry about themselves or their own
Right.
story on me, um, or they just don't know, and I am kind of an anomaly. Right? They just don't know who I am, right? They because they're occupied with their own
Yeah.
life. But the there are a few people who just accept me, like accept the being, and that is the most, to me, that's the most valuable thing I have in my life, because when I go into situations, say with my one of my dearest, oldest friends, Terry and Christy, when I go down there for Pizza Fridays, I can be exactly myself. I can, right? There's no pretense to
Yeah.
any of it. There's no expectation to any of it, other than we're going to be eating pizza and drink. We're going to be making pizza, eating pizza, and drinking wine,
And having a
and
great, and just being in
just
that
being,
moment.
maybe
Yeah.
not even, and there's no, like, we're not even there, we're not even necessarily there to entertain each other, right?
Exactly.
Like
You're
I'm
just
not
there to
even
exist
expecting to
together.
have an amazing conversation, or I'm just there for whatever happens. I'm just there
Yeah.
because I know we need to eat, that I love those people, I love the family, and we just hang out. And none of it, I mean, probably the most opulent thing depends on, how expensive and how good the bottle of wine is. Everything else is very relaxed. We're in an old 1900s bungalow, drafty bungalow down on, above Lake Washington. And on a nice day, you can smell the pizza from the street. You
That's
can smell the
awesome.
oven from the street.
I love that. That actually, that yesterday the question came up, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? And I was like, we're gonna have an abundance of food, and we're gonna relax. We have no schedule. I just said, I said to her, I said, I've never done stress at holidays. I don't know what stress at the holidays feels like. I just have never participated in stress at holidays. Like, to me, it's a time to just exist in that moment, right? And whoever
Yeah.
wants to be here is here. And I don't know, it's a fairly small group. Zia's going to go over to her best friend Gigi's at 1, and she's running the arts and crafts table for the kids table. And anyway, she's going to
Oh,
go do
nice.
that. And so it'll be me and Ken and Soph hanging around the house. But like, I just appreciate having low obligation levels, and warmth, and people I enjoy. I don't know. That's it. That's it. That's what I like
Yes.
about the holidays. I don't know. But I don't do
Yes.
stress at the holidays. I'm not real good at that.
Well, um, I, 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 I don't know that I would say I don't do stress at the holidays. I certainly feel it in and amongst, right, the people that I encounter, especially as it gets closer to Christmas.
Yeah, being out in the world for sure. Right? Parking.
But I find the best experiences are when the city is maybe paralyzed by a snowstorm, and people are forced to not be able to do it, right? Everyone's taken out of their routine or their mission.
Yeah.
Their mission is interrupted by the snowstorm, and the city is quiet, and there is nothing to do because the entire community is forced out of doing.
Yeah.
And
Like when
you
the
either have to,
pandemic hit.
right, and you have to face being.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You have to leave the doing and face the being, and to me, the being is the most freeing part.
It is. It absolutely is. I keep thinking about when you were talking about the worry that others carry for you.
Yeah,
It just, you know, that saying with like put your sorries in a sack or whatever. I don't know what the exact phrasing of it, but like it just like sometimes when people extend worry for you, like do you ever just feel like being like, you know what, you can save the energy of that worry and spend it on something else. Like you don't have to spend worry on me. I don't need your worry. Like I don't mean to say that in an arrogant way, but like
but
it's almost
but
like you hope that they could just use that energy in a more positive way. That's good
yeah.
energy they're burning.
Well, I kind of feel like there's the Aikido move of like, well, thank you for your thank you for your thoughts and prayers.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Right, but again, it is a form of arrogance. People don't like to hear that, but because the worry isn't really doing anything. It's not, there is no purpose to the worry. It doesn't do anything. Now, if that person was worried about me and I said, you are right.
Yeah. Like, oh, I'm
If they
worried
were
too.
if they were really right, if there was something, and I go, could you help me? Or
Sure.
could you do this with me? Then that would really be useful. But the worry in and of itself, if the worry is unfounded,
Yeah.
which in many cases it's just a projection of somebody's past experience,
Right.
or somebody with other people, or their own past experience or their own observations that are being projected on me, then, and also the other part that I felt in this moment where somebody was worried about me was that you may, and I took it all in. I go, you may be right, but this is my journey,
Right.
and I think it's going to be the most interesting to see what happens
Yeah. Yeah.
versus me versus me intervening in a way that you are suggesting,
Right.
or me changing course in the way you're suggesting. I like this course.
Yeah.
It's a course that I'm getting something out of it, obviously. And so I want to see what happens.
Have you ever had anyone, instead of saying I worry for you, that they ask you, do I need to worry for you?
Well, that answer is always no.
Right.
Or that
Like,
answer is like, because that's pointless.
yeah,
It's
but
like,
like, I feel like
I mean,
that would be more my approach. Like, I don't know why, but I've never felt worry for you, Stefan. But
thank
at the
you.
same time, I feel like if I were feeling like I should, I would probably ask you first. Like, is there anything I can do for you? But somehow, I don't know. It's funny. It
Well,
just never crossed my mind to worry about you.
yeah, my best, um, mm, like, how am I going to say this? The best thing you can do for me is not worry about me until you see a reason, until you see something horrendous or
Worrisome.
terrible, worrisome, right? And I think what helps is to go back to like my early training as a counselor, paraprofessional counselor working with college students, if you think a student, a kid, or anybody is thinking suicidally,
Sure.
right? We
Sure.
know this. The best thing to do is go, are you thinking of hurting yourself? Instead of like, should I worry about you? Because then you're asking that other person to to figure it out, instead of just going straight to the behavior that you know is harmful or worrisome. And it's
Right.
like, are you thinking of hurting yourself? And you've gone through these things. You've dealt with these things. I've dealt with these things as a professional, working with students, and having students commit suicide.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the best thing to do is go straight towards the behavior instead of trying to interpret something or go
Yeah.
around it. And that avoids the, do I need to help you, or do I think, the presumptuousness. There's no
Yeah.
presumption. You're
Yeah.
just there's no presumption. It's just, you're just asking, and that person can either answer or not. And then if they answer like no,
Yeah.
then you can move on, and you don't, there doesn't need to be any presumption.
Yeah.
I mean, you still might have concerns, or that person could be lying, but there's nothing you can do to help if that person is lying
Yeah. That's
themselves,
the
right? Or
thing.
lying
Yeah.
to you. So, because you don't, obviously, if they're not answering in the affirmative, we don't have a deep enough connection with them to get the truth, right?
Yeah.
Like they're not
Exactly.
trusting us. So if somebody doesn't trust me with the truth, then I can do very little for them.
Yeah.
And so this is that kind of push and pull of, whether, again, we're back to that, whether or not I am really helping. In many cases, it's totally arbitrary, right? Based on the circumstance and based on whether I think I'm really helping, or whether, based on my history of what I imagine helped, but I may not be helping
It's true.
until that person actually opens up, lets me in, or the circumstance. And in the end, we only have ourselves to help, right? Like
Yeah.
the bigger, better, more expansive, more open Jamie is, in my estimation, is of greater use to the universe than the judgmental or trying to figure stuff out or trying to work, is, if I am basing my judgments on my history, then, and the history that I cherry pick, that may not be very helpful to me or anyone in my life, because it's
That's
just
true.
my arbitrary story that I have decided to tell myself.
Right. Oh.
That was a lot of
No, but it's
babble there, but it's what no, very few people want to hear this.
that's the thing that I actually appreciate, though, is that in a lot of ways I'm working through understanding it by living it, these theories and philosophies and ideas, or this openness, right? And I feel like I'm doing all right, but I also feel like I'm still untangling pieces, right? To make, it's not even that it doesn't make sense. It totally makes sense in a lot of ways, but that letting go is, and we've talked about this many times, it's a practice that requires maintenance, right? It's like you don't just become aware of something and then ta-da, I'm done, I'm there, I'm being at all times. It
Yeah.
just doesn't seem to work that way for me. And for me, it takes practice, it takes reminders, it takes new ways of approaching things and thinking about things. And that's where I feel like one of the most beautiful parts of this conversation that we have each week is that even if we're talking about the same thing in theory, we come at it from different angles, different experiences that we've had from the past week, or, and so like adjusting those different situations with a different technique or a different mindset or a different, like, it all kind of comes back to, okay, being and letting go, and I am nature, like all of the circumstances that arise throughout each week. Sometimes those reminders have to be approached in different ways depending on how that circumstance popped into our life, right? And I think that's what I'm trying to say, is that I love that no matter how you navigate it, like there's always a mindset about the being, but sometimes for me that requires the reminder. I need the reminder still, and I
Well,
aspire to not needing a reminder so much, but I love that we have it.
well, it's like any practice or any skill. We have a toolkit, right? Like we have all these different tools now
Yeah,
about, I mean, in our vocations, we learn all kinds of tools and tricks. And in our personal lives and avocations, we have all kinds of tools and tricks. And in our spiritual, personal, emotional lives, we learn all kinds of tools and tricks to get back to center. And after a while, in my experience, like years ago, I learned all of these letting go techniques, the Sedona technique,
right,
tapping, the all kinds of, and even earlier than that, learned all of these gestalting and much more, I would call them invasive techniques to get back to neutral. And some of them were, I would say, were even destructive. They weren't necessarily good tools. But now I have all these tools, and what I notice is that I can put the tool to use just by going to the feeling of knowing that I have the tool and then I know how to use it. And I can, let's say I have the Sedona method or tapping, a tool for letting go of some feeling that doesn't feel good. Instead of going through and doing the tool, I can go straight to the letting go, because I know that what's the difference between using the tool to, it's a ritual. The tool is
right,
just a ritual that I believe in that gets me to the letting go.
right.
Right. And so the tool itself, like when you're tapping on acupuncture meridians and you're creating an electrochemical response in your body that triggers a feeling of being able to, or letting go. And what's the difference between going through the ritual and me just going, like going to my being and just believing that, oh, I can let that go.
Yeah,
I
and
can
that's
do that. And
you're
so I go,
saving yourself the trip.
right. It's so instead of going through the ritual of the tool, I know that I can get to that feeling, because what we're doing with the tool is trying to get to a certain feeling
Yeah,
of release, get to a certain feeling of being, get back to the moment, instead of this distraction of either a worry about the past or a worry about the future. And so the tools are a great way to get us to this place, but the key is in remembering where that place is, right? Remembering that feeling, the practice of oh man, that I am in this place of being. I am nature. I am.
that right there is what this is for me. And I think that that's so, like, instead of tapping or that this has become that tool for me, right? The
Yeah.
conversation. and the kind of revisiting experiences that we've had in the past week, and then resetting again. And I think that's what I love about doing this. And, yeah, right now, that's where I am at, is that this is the tool for that. It's not yoga or meditation or tapping or any of these other methods that I too have learned across my life. It's a conversation with somebody who understands it in a way that I feel like I can connect to. And yeah, I appreciate that, actually. It's funny. My mind was kind of wandering in a few different directions while you were talking, about, oh, anyway, yeah,
What,
that's what this
what,
has become for me.
yeah. And so we have this weekly moment where we really get grounded, or I could call it two things. We get really grounded and clear. Also, we kind of get really high too. Right?
Right.
Like there's always been a moment where there's kind of the buzzing, and I feel
Right.
the vibration of like, wow, we're so clear right now.
Yeah.
We're really in it. We're really in the moment. And the trick is to find one other moment in the week, and so then you're breaking it down into shorter segments, and then
Yeah.
one other moment in the week and one other moment in the week, and then dividing that and that and that, and then all of a sudden it is a string of moments that are that we are connecting,
Yeah.
uh, a string of moments where we are being, or where we are in the flow, or whatever we want to call it, grounded, high, in the
Yep.
flow, being, God sense. There's so many words that you can apply to it, and at that point, and make a lot of people angry with spiritual mumbo
Sure,
jumbo.
sure,
But
sure.
it is a beingness and a level of attention to the moment, and the word, there is a word that that Abraham Hicks likes to use, and it is something like satisfaction or contentment, or just a
Yeah.
right. It's beyond joy. It's beyond, right, because joy can be a little agitating even, but it's this place of, let's say, peace or clarity, and that we can link those moments. And so we create this moment here, and this is like we're creating reference points. Every time we come back, we're creating a more and more refined reference point. And in some cases, I don't know if somebody listens to all 23 episodes of this podcast, they might just go, they just talk about the same stuff every week over and over and
Right,
over.
right.
But that's what this is. This is a practice for us
Yeah.
to get in the moment, to get to a place of being, contentment, peace, grace, gratefulness. I mean, it is perfect that we're having this conversation on Thanksgiving, because again, this is the best moment of the week for me, because I feel the most clear. It feels the most purposeful, and to be arrogant about it, it feels the most useful to me, and based on my feedback to you. But
Yeah, yeah,
but again, you are the judge of what's most useful in your life, and
for sure.
as I am the judge of what's most useful and joyful and interesting in my life.
But yeah, and that for me, like I relate to that too, because it is useful. It is useful in that it's such a I really embrace the positive aspect, right? Like I feel like welcoming that positivity and that positive moment, which is how I perceive all of this to be. Um, I like having that checkpoint, because the week that goes between our conversation is not is not always just a positive experience, right? Like things happen that kind of like derail being in the moment. Things happen that derail positivity and joy, and that's okay. But learning how to navigate those from moment to moment, and I don't know, I've long practiced. You know, if you have a bad moment, it doesn't mean that you have a bad day. Like I don't subscribe to that. Like I feel like that's like 101. But like
Yeah.
but I do feel that sometimes when bigger things happen, it does take more mindfulness to remember like that, like this isn't going to control the outcome of anything. Like this is a moment, and maybe it's a series of moments that extend, but ultimately we're gonna, like when you were talking about, you know, the moments in the series and sort of stacking moments, it reminds me a lot. So I've done a lot of practice in habit building, positive habit building, right? And the whole tiny challenges thing. And I've learned that there's a James Clear in Atomic Habits talks about like a string of pearls or whatever, and it's like you just put one pearl on, and that's the doing to build new habits, right? But this is the
Yes.
same thing in a way. This is building a new positive habit, right? And every time we have one of these conversations, we're putting another pearl on the string that links them together. But what I loved about what you were talking about is now it's not just these conversations that link these moments together. It's actually adding different, you know, more pearls on in between these conversations throughout the, you know, these conversations are great, sort of like bring it back, don't forget, reminder, go out and, you know, find more pearls to string onto the necklace, so to speak. But anyway,
Yeah. Well, and to remember the feeling that
yeah.
you have the ability to get to this moment, and you don't necessarily need a trick or a ritual,
Mm-hmm.
although this is, this is the grand trick, is we do this for an hour, which is,
Right.
or more.
Mm-hmm.
This is a grand trick so that we have an opportunity. We're stringing together a lot of moments here
Yeah.
over the course of an hour. And at some point in this hour, we will have a feeling or a thought or an epiphany
Yeah.
that we can take with us. That epiphany creates a feeling. Right? It inspires a feeling, or it inspires a broader way of thinking. And we can take that with us throughout the week and remind ourselves of it. And also, when we have, and I like the way that you say a moment, when we have a moment, instead of calling it, this is bad,
Right.
it's just like, wow, this is a moment. This
Yeah.
is interesting. I wonder how this is going to resolve itself,
Yeah.
because it will resolve itself, because I know I'm going to get back to that other moment, this moment. I know I'm going to get back to this moment at least once a week,
Yep.
right? Because I already know how to do it. Like
Yeah.
we know, you and I know how to do this now because we've been practicing.
Exactly. And I
We've
do
been
think
practicing. We know how to do it. So we know
practice is so
we know we're going to
key.
get back here. Yeah. And so that is priceless. And then it's like, then we have this reference point, and we know, like, well, I'm in a moment. I don't, I'm in a moment right now, and I want to be in another moment. And I can remember that I know this place. I know this
Yeah.
place of being, of centeredness, of clarity. And it may not even be of clarity, right? Because a lot of what we're doing is we're stirring shit up.
Right. Right.
And so, but the, but the thing that we need to remember is that we're stirring stuff up, and we are open to seeing it in a new way. We are open to seeing things in a new way. And that's also a state of being that's worth remembering. Even when things are super crappy, right? Because,
Right. And they
at some
do.
point,
They like crappy happens. Like, yeah.
crappy happens. But what I have found recently is that I can see crappy all around me. Really terrible, right? There are terrible, horrendous things happening all around us.
Of course. Yeah.
Certainly in the news, but I just look at that and I'm like, that's just what's happening, right? It's interesting. It's what's happening, but it has nothing to do with who I am and what I'm curious about and where my contentment lies and what I may or may not have to offer,
You know what? I think
right?
that's
Myself or the people around me, or eh, uh, just by being clear and present and open. And if I go back to my friend who I was talking with, who we were talking about at the beginning of this, my job was not to say yes, you're making the right decision, or
right.
no, you're not making the right, or pile on with all the people who were worried about him. I was like, I'm not worried about you, and good luck making that really hard decision. I hope you find the most crafty and and fun way to make that decision,
Yeah.
because it sounds like you really want this. You really want this. And if you really want this, I really want this for you, but I'm not going to tell you if it's right or wrong, or
Right. Right.
right. It's like you're the judge.
Something you said what I have to offer, like what I have to offer. This is something that I feel like it really resonates with where my focus has been a lot lately. And it's, when crappy happens, as we said earlier, when crappy happens, what do I have to offer to the moment? To is it something that is beyond my control? Is it something that I have something I can offer to make the situation not crappy? I don't know. I've been thinking about that a lot, but then there's also this aspect of is it is it my responsibility? Like, and I don't mean it in a way of like, oh, I want to be not responsible for this. Like, I absolutely want to actively participate in making this existence the best that it can be, for not just for me, but for others too, in as much as I actually have an impact, right? Like, there are some things that no matter how hard I try or trumpet an opinion or a voice, it's not going to impact certain things. And I think that what I have to offer element of this, that's something I've just been pondering a lot, and trying to be present in that mindset, right? Like, what do I have to offer this? Will it impact it in a way that is meaningful and worth the energy, you know?
Well,
I don't I
my,
don't know if I'm getting it all out the way that it
well, yeah, I think my answer to all of that is it's not what you do, it's who you are. And so who you are is the most important part of the equation, because that will determine of whether people are even open to your point of view and open
right.
to a broader, more, let's say, solution oriented viewpoint. And so you have to be who you are to the best of your ability before you even have a chance of
Yeah.
being helpful to others. And that is ultimately, that's the put your own oxygen mask on first
Yeah.
philosophy,
And
because otherwise you're not going to be useful to anyone. And so, and again, useful is totally arbitrary. It is useful is something that is an agreement that happens between more than one. It starts with useful to ourselves. We are the arbiters of that ultimately. But then if we are useful to our friends, our family, or society, that has to be a mutual agreement. There has to be a license there to help.
Yeah.
right? It's not just worrying about you is not useful,
You know,
but
this,
communicating with you about where you're trying to go, what you want to do, and listening to you, the being, and acknowledging your being and your goals and your interests, that may be useful. But giving a piece of advice based on my experience may not be as useful as helping that person find their perfect experience.
and that is actually, that's like another piece, the operative word, listen, the word listen.
Mhm.
I realized, I don't know, sometimes it's the self-awareness and self-analysis piece of all this is, am I a good listener? And I don't think I am a very good listener sometimes. And listening with anticipation to have a response or a relatable story is not always listening. It's not listening. It's hearing and trying to contribute in a valuable way. But that, like, the whole arbitrary aspect of that is that it's exactly that. It's arbitrary, and maybe listening is exactly what needs to happen, and not coming at it with a solution or um yeah, there's no response always. Like you don't always have to have a response, and I am trying to practice that more. um I'm trying to practice mindful listening. That's something that I'm working on very actively, but I think being aware of it, I catch myself in moments where I'm being a terrible listener. I catch myself in those moments a lot. And man, I'm ashamed almost of them when I catch myself, but nobody else is pointing it out to me. It's just,
No, because it's part of the dynamic, right? There's some,
yeah.
because people are too wrapped up in their own stuff to be judging or
And that's good,
analyzing
probably. I appreciate
analyzing your approach to something.
I appreciate in a lot of ways that people aren't like you're a terrible listener, Jamie. But at the same time,
May,
like at some point I became aware that I'm not the best listener. And it's something that I want to improve at. I want to be more mindful
yeah,
and
but
listen.
maybe for other people you are just the right listener or the right person or the
I'm
people.
just an adequate amount of listening skill there.
Well, or again, you might be in a conspiracy where people expect you to solve their problems for them, and
Sometimes,
then they don't have to take responsibility for solving their own issue, right? So you're in the habit of being helpful because you're good. You are a user experience designer in the greatest sense, right? And
yeah,
you
I
can
mean,
look at
that's
somebody's situation and go, oh, well, you just need to put this here and that there and make this move, and Bob's your uncle.
yeah, exactly. That's, I think it does come out of, with design roots and user experience design. That was my job for most of my career, and I'm doing it now just in a different capacity, right? But like it was very, problem solving has been my career in some way or another. Problem
Yeah.
solving has been, here's the problem, now solve it somehow, whether it's through design or word choices or whatever, or advice.
Well,
Yeah.
I think I, this being a problem solver, I think the greatest trick is to in the listening and in the coaching and in the guiding is to coach and guide in a way so that the person who's solving whatever they're solving actually believes that they came up with everything
That
on their
is
own, right?
absolutely key.
That I as a coach and I'm not there yet either. In some cases I'm very confrontive, certainly to some of the people I work with, but they're used to it. especially when you're working with young people who still need rules
Yeah.
or have never had rules.
Yeah.
But the business world works amongst a set of rules. So if you want to be successful in business, and you've written a book about this, right?
Yeah.
12 ways to be
Better to work
better
with.
to work with, right? And so a lot of young people don't know these things.
Yeah.
But the trick, I think the ultimate trick, the ultimate magic is to listen and coach and expose someone's own innate ability to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And give them, instead of telling them what to do, asking them to solve it, asking them, here are the things you need to solve. So whether you do it this way, this way, this way, and I did this recently with somebody, and they came up with a very organized, right? Because they had it in them.
Yeah.
They're just so wrapped up in their emotional state that they just didn't work on it. Right.
Yeah.
But it's like you have and so they came up with a solution and a framework about which to do what they needed to do.
Yeah.
And they also started doing it.
Yeah. That's, when I used to do the talk about burnout, right? Like I used to talk about like through burnout and back again, because my own experience was I found myself in this state that I didn't want to be in, that I didn't like, that felt hopeless. And what I ended up doing was falling back on a framework that I had in me already that I used to build great products. And so I was like, oh, if I use those skills and turn it on myself and design my life as if it's the product I'm trying to design, and I have a good track record for building good products, will this work? And it totally works. Like, so sometimes these frameworks that we have that are tools within us, they are the thing that can get us, but having somebody, I mean, you very much were a catalyst in that thinking. And then, it goes back to that conversation we had. I was like, Stefan, I can't do this job anymore, but I don't know what's next. And you're like, it's not about what's next. It's about what's important. And then it got me thinking about design principles, and the compass that guides us is the principles. And anyway, that whole deal. But these frameworks, we do have tools already in us. And sometimes it takes a catalyst of the right question or the right word choice or the right, just the something to kind of wiggle that, dislodge the, this is what's going on. And then this is the whirlwind I'm stuck in. And sometimes, just the right little interjection of a good coach or a good conversation with somebody can remind us we have what it takes already in us to solve this problem and to navigate our way into a better situation.
Yeah, and the beauty of listening is that by asking open-ended questions and just sitting there and being at peace and clear and watching the story or the bits come out of the person we are listening to, you're accepting their circumstance wholeheartedly. Just by listening, we're accepting their circumstance. And then as they are expounding on their circumstance or spewing or putting it out there, we can look at it. Everyone can look at it. Everyone who's part of that conversation or part of the listening can look at it and maybe find novel patterns or connections or just make peace with it without needing to push a solution.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Sometimes the best solution is just allowing something, right? I'm angry with this person. I want this person to change, right? Or I want this situation to change. I'm angry. And then just letting that anger out then all of a sudden, maybe nothing needs to change other than my view of what makes me angry, right? So
Yeah.
the listening in and of itself is listening is the universal can opener of counseling and of conflict resolution and emotional releasing. Listening is this, it's the Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
And often there's not much else that needs to be, I mean, certainly with very complicated issues, but in the end, a lot of times the issue is just how we feel about something. It's not the actual material circumstance that's the problem. The
Yeah.
problem is often how we just feel about something.
Yeah.
And and so the listening in a way can get that person to a solution, and they will own it. They can own that solution without me having to impose any kind of um, um, arrogant idea of what that person should or shouldn't do.
Right.
Right. Or, and if that person is really confused and really stuck, and I can see a path, a simple path, maybe as all of that snow is shakes flying around in the snow globe, I can pick out a few things and highlight and
Right.
point them out and lead that person to a solution. But ultimately, that person needs to feel that it came from them. Otherwise, they are bound to us for this
Yeah.
solution. They are bound to us for getting to a solution. And that's, in the long run, that's unhealthy, because
Sure.
we want to teach people how to fish,
Yeah.
right?
Not
I
just how
mean,
to eat.
exactly, right? And then once they learn how to fish, then they need to learn how to clean the fish, cook the fish, then compost the fish bones, because this is a carbon neutral
That's right.
carbon neutral healing loop.
No, I like that. I like that a lot. Man. Well, shoot. I feel like I have a lot. I have a lot to mull over in my brain. My brain is like, whoop, we did the thing.
Yeah, we load up.
We do.
We load up once a week.
Or our Thanksgiving feast of
What do we
mind.
call this? What do we call this episode?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know. Crappy happens. No, I'm kidding. I don't want to
No,
call it that
that's
on
not.
Thanksgiving Day. Um,
No, 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 no.
no, I mean, there's been a lot. There's been, um, man, I mean,
Well,
listening was our last point, but also like, it's like
you.
there's the non-judgmental approach too, right? We started with the exchange between you and your friend and the sort of a, yeah, the like letting go of the, oh my gosh, trying to think of what would be a great little synopsis for today.
I don't.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I mean, we can call it the Great Thanksgiving episode or something.
Yeah.
I think what I've done in the past is I I don't know that there's a way to summarize. I haven't. I guess I'm asking you because I haven't figured out a way yet. And you were thinking about writing descriptions for the episodes,
Yeah.
which
Yep.
I think is great, because I haven't come up with a way yet
Yeah.
to form a synopsis for the episode. So what I do is, when you upload the episode, I just I skim through it. I watch little bits,
Watch for us
and
to
then
go.
I cherry pick a nugget. I
Yeah.
cherry pick just one thing that we said that is a kind of a clear, catchy idea or thought from the episode, and then I just put that in the title, and that's it. Because
Yeah.
I don't I because trying to summarize the entire episode may be limiting, because what somebody finds useful in the episode.
Yeah. Because we do
So
cover a lot of ground sometimes. And, often, at least for me, I feel like if I had to pick a theme for today, it's almost like what what do I have to offer to this moment? And, I mean, I feel like from the moment, the conversation that you had with your friend and that perception of, um, yeah, like the judgment that sometimes people offer to you, I think it's questioning what I have to offer. And,
Yeah, what do I
and
really have to
what
offer,
do
I
I
think.
really have to offer to this moment? And is it warranted? You know? And
Yeah.
like, and I don't know, but refinement of perception in what I have to offer. Um,
Well, and maybe in the end, what we really only have to offer, the most useful thing is what we are giving ourselves, right? Giving ourselves um, being, that we are allowing ourselves beingness, that we are shooting, aiming. Um, the goal is to be, I mean, I always come back to that, but
yeah,
uh, who you are, who you really are, is what you have to offer, not
yeah,
what you do or say or even think,
perceive. Yeah.
but who you are in the grandest sense.
That's
Um,
a Thanksgiving theme.
who you are is what you have to offer. Maybe that's it. Is who you are is what
Is
you
what you
have to
have to
offer.
offer.
Yeah. All right. So
Wow. We got there.
yeah,
I like that we had to kind of work through that one because I do feel like we covered a lot of different grounds today.
yeah,
Very thought provoking for me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and also I think it goes in with, Thanksgiving for us is a day. I mean, what I celebrate is not having to do anything or be anybody in
Yeah.
particular.
That's
Just show
exactly.
up. Although there are requirements, there are certain rituals and requirements in my family, and I will face those later today.
I was going to ask, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? What is your
I will,
experience?
well, it's been different over the years. Some years, and my favorite years, I've just gone off and, like gone up to Whistler and gone skiing, or,
Oh, that's great.
right, or driven to Joshua Tree. A couple of Thanksgivings, I've spent those in Joshua Tree climbing and then sitting on top of a rock. If you've been to Joshua Tree,
Not in many years,
and
but yes.
it's high out. It's a high altitude desert plateau. It's 45. Well, not that high, but it's 4,500 feet. So it's. But there are vantage points you can climb up on these rocks, and I've been lucky enough to be down there twice during a full moon,
Oh, wow.
and we could simultaneously watch the sun setting and watch the moon rising.
Wow. That's really
That's the
neat.
perspective, right? I have the entire 360-degree horizon, climb up to some of these rock pinnacles, these rock piles in Joshua Tree, and just look in front of me and see the sun setting, and then look behind me and watch the moon rising.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah. And so those have been my favorite Thanksgivings. The least favorite are the ones where there are the full-on ritual of having to sit around with all the family members and and presume that people are enjoying it.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if they're not.
Right. But I will go down, and my brother will be exercising his smoking and barbecuing skills, and we're going to have a nice meal, and my mother will make her famous potato salad, and
Oh, that's
it'll be
great.
and we'll have my mom's apple pie made from apples that come right from the neighborhood, right?
That's great.
There's right. And so all of those things will be there, and there will be great joy for my mom that we will be there. My daughter will be in New York. I don't I mean, unless she just shows up by surprise or something. But I don't think she, with the price of airfare right now,
Yeah, it's bananas right
a
now.
young 30-something professional in New York, she's going to stay in New York and have
Yeah.
Thanksgiving with her friends,
Yeah.
which is going to be more fun.
Those are great memories to make too. The young times.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to understand, to build her community of people who are dear to her, build her family, because that's her, because she's, she's not necessarily, it's not a joy for her to be necessarily around one side of the family. There's a
Sure.
lot of tension and a lot of pressure. And
See, and
so,
that's what I specifically just don't participate in. And yeah, like I don't know. I've been that way for many years where I just like I don't know what it's gonna look like exactly, but I know that I'm gonna make it as comfortable as I can for me.
yeah,
And welcome my family to participate in that.
yeah. And there we are. Who you are is
What
what
I
you
have to
have to
offer.
offer.
That's it.
That's it. And
Bam.
bam, bam,
Bam.
boom. That is,
uh
folks, that is the Thanksgiving episode of
That is.
Unconstrained.
That is it.
And I am grateful that we have done this and we've done this so often, and that the luster is still there.
I agree. I'm still having fun. Which is my primary focus in life. Is it fun? Then I'm in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And so
yeah,
I
a
am
big
looking,
factor for me, really. But
yes, yeah. So I am looking forward. I want to thank you for this moment, this string of beautiful moments that we have put together. And I look forward to our next string of moments that we will put together next week.
thank you, Stefan. We'll see you in a week. Have a beautiful Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.